Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of the Global Foresight Summit. This year is organized by the APF, the Association of Professional Futurists, the World Futures Review, and Fast Forward. We have now for this session Raquel Janissek-Muñiz. She is the director of the IEA Future Lab in Porto Alegre. She's also professor and researcher at the School of Management at Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul. And her main lines of research are strategic foresight, anticipative intelligence, weak signals, foresight and innovation, smart data, big data, critical factors of foresight process. She's going to speak about anticipative strategic scanning through weak signal detection, a foresight French method. So welcome, Raquel.
Thank you, Francisco. Hello, everyone. I'm happy and honored to have been invited to this conference. My name is Raquel Janissek-Muñiz, and the subject of this presentation is foresight, or as we call this concept in Brazil, Anticipative Strategic Intelligence. I was going to start explaining the concept of our method, but firstly, I couldn't ignore the biggest and perhaps the most unpredictable event we are crossing, the pandemic. In the beginning of 2020, could any of you or the company you work for imagine that the coronavirus were just around the corner? What steps would the companies have taken if they knew in advance about the imminent risk of closing doors? Or even in a personal sphere, were your house prepared to home office? Did you already have an appropriate chair or computer desk for you, your wife, or husband and kids in homeschooling? Indeed, weak signals are detected, at least since October of 2019, but the majority of companies, road organization, and yes, the governments ignore the signals solely. Could you have foreseen what would happen? Maybe with detectives with big lens? No, neither for a madam with a crystal ball. For that, we have weak signals and a method called Anticipative Strategic Intelligence, in a French way to do foresight. Our method was developed by le professeur Humbert Lescar of Université Grenoble-Alpes in France. It is called le scanning, or learning environment scanning. In fact, the scanning of an organization's environment to aid strategic decision-making is not really a new idea. The precursor was Francis Aguilar with the book Scanning the Business Environment, published in 1967, followed by Igor Ansoff with studies of weak signals. Both authors developed the initial concepts, but it was Monsieur Lescar who gathered those theories and put them in an operational process in the ends of 80s. Indeed, there are so many ways, terms, and methods to refer to foresight activity, and the definitions given for such concepts may vary from another to another. The real-world application of these concepts is rarely touched upon in the existing body of literature, And this gap is a barrier to the development of anticipative strategic intelligence. So let me explain this concept in details. That's what we're going to talk about today, the concept of anticipative strategic intelligence. If global context changes are unpredictable and faster than ever, bringing uncertainties and at every level and at all time, what companies need to do to survive? Surely they must take an assertive attitude to be able to adapt to those changes. The companies must be able to perceive markets' movements and advance before the others, boosting a proactive attitude. So, to actively participate in these changes, they must monitor their pertinent environment. But what kind of environment do we consider as relevant? Basically, distinct environments can be relevant for the company's business as a sociocultural, demographic, technological, political, legal, economic, and so on. It always depends what issues they have. From all these environments, we need to develop a perception of teeny signs of change. Indeed, continuous attention to the external environment is essential for intelligence under a prospective lens. Information can lead an alert for any possible future event, but recognize signs of change requires scanning, because these events can bring us a new challenge, which we will have to face, even if we don't be prepared. So briefly, we have to change with the dynamic word, even if it hurts. And to do this, we need to have a proactive way to act. So let's start with the foundations of our method based on these three words. Firstly, intelligence comes from Latin. The part légère or légère means how to choose from different elements. The another part of the word is intel, which means how to establish relationships between the elements. So we came to the following postulate: the ability to choose between different elements associated with skills to set meaningful relationships between them. Moreover, intelligence is about what kind of skills we have in order to create new paths. In fact, there are no version of the future that look like the past. Some important individual skills are attention, imagination, creativity, interpretation, lateral thinking, and so on. Together, they can improve our awareness and boost intelligence. A famous quote by Anais Nin suggests that we don't see things as they are, but as we are. This citation is especially interesting because the information we pick up from the environment, as well the connections we will establish from them, are absolutely related to our personal perceptions. So we need to learn how to develop this skill. Related to intelligence, we also have the concept of collective. In fact, only humans have the ability to construct meaning from information. To be effective in the sense of creating collective meaning, each one who contributes with its interpretation of subject is very important. But considering some ingrained individuals' limitations, we conclude that the collective way of interpreting signals are superior than the individual way. Secondly, we have the word strategic. This word is related to a positions that we want to achieve in the future in a direction established by the company along with various components to get there. Strategy results from detailed planning process with specific goals and can be nourished with relevant information. Strategic, in fact, is very close to anticipation because it feeds on looking to the future to define path. To make strategy, we need knowing the relevant environment and anticipation its evolution. Strategic intelligence aims to making the right decisions today for the long-term future. Thus, strategy is about how to build the future, enhancing competitive and durable advantage. It's also a plan of action designed to bring a desired and possible future, which needs to be designed and chased. In addition, strategic may refer to the decision-making process, whereby a strategic plan is drawn up as a guide to action, or the actual implementation of strategic plan on the ground. In both cases, time is of essence. Anticipation is therefore a prerequisite to strategy. And thirdly, the word anticipative for us is the most important. Strategic decision-making and anticipation should work together. And why do we call as anticipative intelligence? Because the past is already happened. Only the future is a construction. So anticipation refers to the process of imagining the steps of possible consequences and of an event that has been announced or barely started. Taking action in advance can minimize those consequences and influence its progress, as well as taking advantage of them or alternative guard against them. So do you have a good question here? Do you think it's better to make decision for the future looking forward or backwards? Imagine yourself driving a car on a road and we will know the correct answer. Even if the past seems to be clear and the future is still without defined outlines, your direction is towards the future, and more information will help you to identify the correct path to follow. Of course, looking in the rearview mirror is important, but looking ahead is decisive. It is obvious that when thinking about the company's future, yes, we can learn from the past. But imagine the future will repeat the past. It is quite naive. Here we can see how the mechanism works, doing a comparison between a proactive and a reactive position for a moment zero. At this point, we need to choose the correct type of information. These scales show different types of anticipative information, from megatrends to wildcards. While megatrends are drivers of global change and have strong impact that affect an entire system over a long period of time, weak signals and wildcards are subjective in origin and depend on perception and interpretation. So weak signals are the main input of the method scanning. Weak signals are, in fact, elements that can incite in the attentive and sensitive decision maker a feeling that something important seems to be starting or could happen. A weak signal does not exist by itself. It requires a perception associated with an interpretation. A weak signal starts to exist from the moment someone projects an interpretation of any information. Weak signals are early manifestation of events or future changes. They also are fragmented, partial, inaccurate, uncertain, which is hidden in the midst of an infinity of raw data. The importance of perceiving this threat before it occurs allows to mitigate the urgency and the impact that a strategic discontinuity can generate, or to identify an opportunity taking advantage of the possibility still information. This phenomenon shows an information amplification since the first perception until interpretation and exploitation to action. Weak signal is something intangible, and consequently, it's not sufficient to act. It is not operational. So it's necessary actionable knowledge, a method, and some tools to search for it, identify, or interpret it. As an example, a trainer observer working at legal company visiting a little boy's house saw a very old and shabby sneakers kept as a trophy by his owner, whose memories were about sports conquests. These insights about children putting value on challenges and conquest redirected to the legal strategy at the time, helping the company run out of a collapse. So this kind of questions can be answered with the French method, the scanning. How can we detect potential weak signals? How do we interpret weak signals? How to turn it into organization process? Therefore, it is essential to implement and systematize a process in the company by training the team. The scanning method materializes the concept working with information plus interpretation plus action. Based on the fundamentals already seen, the process is dynamic and powered by weak signals. It starts with the choice of an application field. Then, we define out and turn our attention to a target composed by teams and actors from relevant environment. With the target established, we proceed with perception and tracking for weak signals. Firstly, in an individual selection, and later sharing those information in a collective way. The set of information is registered and starts the process of collective creation mining. The heart of our method is the collective creation of mind, where from the selected information, the puzzle tool for sense-making is applied. The collective creation of mind, instrumentalized by the puzzle tool, allows a creative session with lot of weak signals. The connections and interpretations will generate insights to action. Indeed, we start with a set of weak signals clustered in groups, following by creating connections between them to generate a representative and future scenario. Then, a list of insights and recommendations are proposed, which helps define strategies. This process must be continuously fed for better results. So this is what we do at IEA Future Lab. We are based on School of Management at Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil. Our team is composed by French, Brazilian, and Tunisian researchers, professors, consultants, and students that work researching and training strategic foresight. Thank you so much. Hi, Francisco.
Thank you so much, Raquel, and thank you everyone for watching us. Raquel, unfortunately, does not have time for more, but she's happy to reply to any questions that you in the audience should have for her presentation or for her work at the IEA. Let me share with you her email address so you can write directly to her and direct the email any questions that you should have.
Okay, thank you, Francisco. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Raquel. Thank you for joining the Global Foresight Summit, and all the best for you and for your team in Porto Alegre.
Thank you, Francisco, for you too.
Thank you, everybody. We are back with the next session with Carla Paniagua in 20 minutes. So we'll be back very soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.